So welcome to a crossover between the cooking club and the weight loss club. My name's Anjana and I'm one of the volunteers at the clinic. Um, and I co-lead our healthy eating or cooking club here at the clinic. And you might have seen some of our videos here on our YouTube channel before. I put our DASH diet one over there, kind of ties into today's topic. It's a pleasure to meet all of you today. I got a feel for the sense of community that we're building, that you guys have been building here, which is really nice. When you're trying to set goals like healthy eating, it's so empowering to have other people to motivate you and to engage in these community discussions. So it's really great to be here and to be present and to share the space with you. And I'm excited to explore a simple, healthy recipe. I think that was the feedback we got, that everyone's looking for simple things. And I tried to add some science tidbits and some things you might already know, things you might want to explore and improve your understandings on. So it's not just me making a salad. And hopefully we can all go on this journey together and learn something new by the end of today. And at the Cooking Club, we aim to cover, like I said, interesting nutrition related topics to help make health information more accessible and digestible. So we do encourage you here to check out some of our YouTube resources. These are really, really helpful. They're free, they're accessible, and we're really proud. All of us here at all the volunteers at the clinic work really hard to make these videos. And they can help supplement your health journey by just finding things that suit your interests. I'm sure you're all pretty familiar with this page though. But if you aren't, you just search Dr. Greg Curnew on YouTube, and you can click through our page and browse through all the video resources that we have posted. However, if you're looking for specific diet related or nutrition related or even weight loss videos, you can use that little search bar that you'll see on the side over here to just search a keyword, and that's going to help tailor your searches to your individual goals. So yeah, another thing that I wanted to preface here is that this is an informative cooking session, and I sincerely hope that we'll all be able to learn something new and confirm understandings. However, I'd like to preface that I'm not a dietitian or a nutritionist. So if you do have any health-related concerns, I definitely encourage you to direct them towards Dr. Curnew or a physician, or you could check out this resource, Dietitians of Canada, to find a dietitian near you. We do know that a lot of weight loss programs and dietitians are not always accessible or not always free. So we do encourage you, like I said, to use those YouTube videos, to use videos like today and meetings like today and discussions as a starting point to help create your own healthy eating plans. And that's kind of our aim and goal of all of these things, is to create accessible resources that can help you in your journey. Another resource that many of you are probably familiar with, if you've ever been to the clinic, it's probably been shown to you before, is our book, 30 Days to Healthier You. And this is filled with many recipes that you can reference that can help. I mean, sometimes videos work better for some people, sometimes books work better. So we try to create a lot of resources for you. And if you're interested in checking out that book, next time you're in the clinic, just ask one of the volunteers. So before we jump into our recipe, it's really important to understand that successful weight loss requires sustainable and attainable goals. And the gradual weight loss that you achieve through adopting healthy habits that are realistic is how you're going to maintain the motivation to lose weight healthily. Dietary changes are an excellent start to your weight loss journey. So today we're going to explore components of a relatively simple dish, and I hope that you can find some inspiration to incorporate healthy options into your diet. Now, I've just labeled it goal number 1, Canada's food guide. I know myself, when I was younger, this food guide looked a lot different. It was serving based. It's quite limited, and it had a lot more animal protein there. It looked very different than it does right now. This is Canada's food guide right now. It's not necessarily servings based. You can see that it's supposed to be half a plate of fruits and veggies. So that's a significant amount of your plate coming from produce. And then you're looking at proteins. You can see very few animal proteins there, right? Like there's fish, there's lean meats, but there's no red meats. And there's some dairy products there, but in limited quantities. And then there's a real big emphasis on plant-based protein sources, which we're going to talk about a little later today. And I know Dr. Curnew is very passionate about those too, because they can be excellent sources, plant-based sources of fiber and protein. And then another here is the whole grains. You can see that there's, whole grain bread, there's some whole grain pasta there, but there's also quinoa and oats and barley. So, I mean, I don't know how this looked, how many years ago, but it's definitely changed over the past 10 years. And ideally, this is what you want your plate to be looking like. And as you can see, that already looks like a salad to me. So that was sort of the reasoning for today's recipe being a salad, because it sort of encompasses that half that you're going to get, the half that you need to be achieving with, filling with vegetables for your plate. We'll get back to the drinking water over there. But that is the Canada's Food Guide's recommended drink. So if you do end up making this salad, I hope that you're drinking it with a glass of water. We do have a video on our channel that came out, I think it was posted a week or two ago, about healthy beverages. And we explore some of these sugar sweetened beverages and why you shouldn't really be drinking them, and some healthy alternatives. But our conclusion at the end of that video was to be drinking water. So I just wanted to emphasize that there. Okay, and because this is the Weight Loss Club, I'm sure you've all heard about SMART goals before, but I just wanted to reiterate them, just how important they are. So for those of you that haven't heard of SMART goals, they're parameters that help you to ensure that your goals that you want to achieve for really anything, but in this case, perhaps it's a weight loss journey, to make sure that they're really headed in the right direction. So first off, you want to make sure that your goal is specific or direct. So instead of saying, today that you want to eat more healthy foods, specify what meal that is and how often you would like to be eating it. So for me, I'd say, I want to eat a salad specifically, and I want to eat that on Mondays and Wednesdays, because it's more likely that you're going to attain that goal if you're setting a very specific and detailed goal, and not just a broad thing that, could easily be able to just forget about. Secondly, you want to make sure that that goal is measurable or quantifiable so that you can track it. So this could be, setting, whether that's, quantifying the amounts of food that you want to eat, and setting that as a goal that you want to, reduce this much X amount of sodium or X amount of this from your diet. Setting that as a goal, or even, I want to lose X amount of pounds over X amount of months. So making sure that you have these quantifiable goals so that you can track your progress is really important. The next thing you want to make sure is that your goals are achievable and realistic. So if you hate eating a certain food, I know we've all done this probably before, where we tell ourselves that we're going to eat something every day, really healthy, or we're going to, run a mile. But it's not realistic to just set these really big goals for you without building up towards them. So your first goal, your first thing that you should really be doing is setting smaller goals to get to that bigger goal, like walking 20 minutes a day, and then slowly building up towards whatever, how much ever you want to reach, if that's, running. But yeah, life is, it's really preparing for a marathon. You can't run a marathon tomorrow. You've got to build up the stamina to get to make sure that you're able to actually, be sustainable in your goals and, run a marathon. That's how I like to think about it. And then the next thing is that your goals should be relevant, and that's making sure that those mini goals are related. So if your goal is to lose weight, making sure that those mini goals are related to diet or exercise, so that you are working towards a successful or accomplishing or achieving that goal. And then finally is to make sure that your goals are time bound or have a deadline. And I know, as someone who does procrastinate a lot, it can be really easy to tell yourself, I'm going to start tomorrow, I'm going to start the day after. But it's best to just, take a planner out, plan a certain amount of time that you want to achieve this goal by, and start building that plan with these small goals, so that you have this end timeline that you want to reach something by. And that's just going to help you be more sustainable in achieving it. So today, goal number 2 is to set a SMART goal for yourself. My SMART goal, because I did make the salad, I do have a lot of salad. So my SMART goal is to eat a serving of salad 3 times a week this week. That's going to help support a healthier diet for myself and provide me with the energy and nutrients that I need to function and be healthy. So that's my SMART goal. It's a start, and it's a start for everyone. So I hope that, if you already have a SMART goal, or if you have a goal that you want to think about today, you can think about that throughout this presentation. And that's your goal number 2 for me. So yeah, now let's get into the actual recipe part of today. So our recipe today is going to follow the basics of a staple of the Mediterranean diet, which is a Mediterranean salad. The Mediterranean diet originates from the traditional diet, foods, and eating patterns of Mediterranean countries. And this diet was then discovered internationally in the 60s and was investigated in scientific studies in randomized control trials like the PREDIMED study for its efficacy in reducing risk factors for mortality in chronic diseases like diabetes, cardiovascular disease, obesity, as well as its effectivity compared to low-fat diets. So there is scientific evidence that this diet does help or has components and foods in it that help support different aspects of your health that can reduce these risk factors. And we'll explore that when we look at the components of the diet. But here you can just see I put a small image with a few things that you can see already. There's olive oil, there's a big emphasis on legumes and vegetables, whole grains, fruits, herbs, but we can see there's moderate amounts of meat, moderate amounts of dairy products, and then also fish. A lot of the protein here is coming from marine sources or those plant-based sources. And yeah, I see your hand.
Yeah, and I just want to say, sorry to interrupt, but I just want to say too, around, I believe it was last week or 2 weeks ago, I believe it was Anne, correct me if I'm wrong, that mentioned a Mediterranean cooking book. And we also include that in one of our summaries. So if you'd like to, you can, if this after today and this kind of diet interests you, I think it's really great to follow as well. And great to kind of introduce yourself to new things. So if you ever want that resource, it's on our Facebook, it's on the emails as well through the summary sheet. So just want to put that out there as something to talk about.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's amazing. And yes, completely correct. I think the big thing here is, diets can be a scary word. Diets are not one size fits all. If you take this video, if you take the resource that Anya talked about, just read as much as you can, gain as much knowledge as you can, and learn how you can apply different things that'll suit you. So the more that you can learn about these diets, doesn't mean that you have to follow any diet per se specifically, but the more you learn about some of these things, you can apply them to your own health journeys and your own, to meet different health concerns that you might have. So definitely, that's a great point, Anya. I'm very much proponent for learning as much as you can, especially about nutrition. Everything's always changing. There's always new clinical trials. There's always new superfoods. There's always new fads and trends. So it's great to get as much information as you can about these different foods that you'll see. So yeah, the Mediterranean diet, though, however, is heralded as one of the best diets to follow by a lot of sources. So it's a great starting point to, once again, pick and choose a few things that you might want to apply, and to learn, some things that you might want to stay away from. So on this diagram, you can see that the diet really consists of a variety of sources of essential nutritional components, such as, we can see a lot of dietary fiber there, coming from those whole grains and those plant-based sources. Vitamins, potassium is a really big one that you'll get from this diet, and we're going to explore that later too. Magnesium, monounsaturated fats. As you can see, in this diet, they do consume olive oil, so they steer away from saturated and trans fats. But we'll discuss that any amount of fats too, if you are consuming excess amounts of fats, there's room to, eliminate excess fats from. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be putting olive oil in everything. In fact, there's other things that you could put instead of olive oil. But that is just one aspect of the Mediterranean diet. And then there's a lot of antioxidant compounds like polyphenols, which are found in plant compounds. We'll discuss that as well. And then we can see, once again, the major protein sources are coming from marine options like fish. There's very limited amounts of red meats. And then legumes and nuts and seeds are where a lot of that plant-based sources are coming from. And then, as well as that, I think the big thing that we see that's absent here is processed and ultra-processed foods. So the spotlight here is fiber and protein-rich produce. Also, one thing with this diet is that it doesn't necessarily involve calorie counting. However, if you're trying to lose weight, it is important to be able to watch how many calories you're consuming, to know what your estimated energy requirement is, how many, if you're a little above that, and then, if you need to be in a caloric deficit as well. So, one thing to maybe not 100% follow the Mediterranean diet. And that's why we're just picking and choosing some things from here. And then overall to keep, to make sure consuming things in moderation is always important. Things often become superfoods and trendy foods, but you want to make sure that you're not consuming too much of one thing. There's always risks associated with, especially if you might have a health concern that might prohibit you from consuming certain amounts of food. So it's good to know what your health concerns are, and then to obviously consume in moderation always. Here you can see I put a check mark and an X. We are very passionate about this at the Healthy Eating Club. Alcohol is a big topic. I sincerely hope everyone does know that Canada does have updated guidelines for consumption of alcohol. So right now, the recommended amount of alcohol is really 0 to 2 drinks per week. And even then, there is still a risk factor. So the recommended amount is 0 drinks per week. You don't want to be drinking more than 2 drinks. However, if you see a lot of information about the Mediterranean diet, you'll often see that, moderate amounts of red wine are actually part of the diet. And we just want to, make sure that you're all aware that any potential benefits that you're going to get from the compound that is found in a red wine is called resveratrol. It's a polyphenol. It has antioxidant properties, which often gets its rep for being healthy. But any cons, significantly outweigh any benefits or pros that would be associated with alcohol. And we've just reiterated here, water really is the healthiest drink, especially if you're trying to lose weight. Alcohol can hinder your metabolism and your ability to burn fat. So 0 drinks is what we're going to set here as another goal. It's not written here, but if you are currently consuming alcohol, try to set that as a goal for you as well. And yeah, I just, if you want to check out more about alcohol, we do have a webinar about this. It's called To Drink or Not to Drink. And yeah, I might be able to give you like a list of some of the videos that I'm like referencing here that you can share later. But we talk a lot about some of the risk factors that are associated with consuming alcohol. I also think there was someone trying to enter the meeting. You got it? Awesome. Okay. Okay, so let's head on into our recipe. So I've coined this the Mediterranean potato, kale, and bean salad because I could not think of a better name, but it does take aspects of the Mediterranean salad. And then also we're going to talk about some of these key elements: potatoes, kale, and beans, and how we're going to incorporate that into 2 different salads here. So these are the ones that I ended up making. One of them is a warm salad. The other one is a raw salad. I did make both of them for the sake of preference. Some people have more time on their hands, some people don't. That's the really great thing about salads, is that it's very flexible, it's very versatile, and you can really make them quite easily. So, the excuse of not having time to prep for preparation really goes away with the salad. So on our first slide here that we're going to start off with is the leaves. This is our base of the salad. In the recipe list that I shared earlier, which once again, it was for 6 servings. So I do have a recipe list or an ingredients list later in the presentation that is for 1 serving. So if you're just making it for 1 person, that one will work better. But I did add that there are a couple of options that you can use here for dark green leafy vegetables, which is what we're going to try to include here. So that could include kale, spinach, collard greens, arugula. So there's a lot of different options that you can add as your base. I personally added kale. That's what I prefer. But overall, the benefits of these leaves are that they're rich in vitamins, minerals, and fibers. And I'm using a bunch of kale as well in the recipe, but that always, a cup would be about a serving. So if you're using a bunch, that's going to be about six servings. So keep that in mind. I don't know if anyone's making it right now, or if anyone's thinking of preparing it, just make sure that you're aware of, the amount of produce that you're bringing into your house, because we want to make sure we're not wasting anything. And also remember that, see a Canadian Food Guide picture, half your plate should be veggies. So half of this is coming from our leaves too. And I've added the kale nutrition profile over here, just because that's what I added. So we can see over here is that kale is a superb source of vitamin C. And that's going to support, that antioxidant properties in your immune system. There's also vitamin A, vitamin K, and then also great amounts of potassium, calcium, iron, manganese, and copper. We also see that there's amounts of fiber in there that are going to help slow digestion and regulate blood sugar levels, which is going to promote that longer energy storage, which can help in weight loss, and also low in calories as well. And I think for me personally, what I love about salads is they're so filling that that's one aspect about losing weight. You want to make sure that you're eating meals that are high in fiber and high in protein, those plant-based proteins that are going to make sure that you're not feeling hungry after an hour, and that you're full, and that digestion process is being slowed down. And that's really important for when you're making meals, to make sure that it's not, those quick, easy carbs that are going to burn really quickly, but that you're able to slow down the process of digestion and then promote fat burning. So that was kind of an obvious one. I think we can all pretty much, understand that dark green vegetables are probably are healthy. I don't think the picture is showing here, but I did have some molecular structure of polysaccharides. They're not there, but one thing I wanted to add to this salad here was potatoes, because a lot of vegetables, especially now in the grocery store, often don't fall into our budget when we're grocery shopping. And that's, it can be difficult when we're trying to, if you have set goals to try to eat healthy, but might not be able to fit it into your budget. We did want to preface that it is summertime now, so it's definitely a great time to go check out farmers markets and different, local produce that you can perhaps buy locally that might be a little bit more cost friendly. But this is why we've added potatoes here, because potatoes are really one of the most affordable, budget-friendly and economical produce options that you can find in the grocery store. And I want you to forget about potato chips and fries, because what often gives potatoes their unhealthy reputation is really how they're cooked. That is, being fried and coated with a lot of salt, butter, cream, and fats. So it's promoting a high calorie and saturated fat diet. And that's obviously something that we want to avoid. So the idea here is that if potatoes are cooked appropriately and consumed in moderation, along with a low calorie and healthy meal, such as a green Mediterranean salad, they can actually provide a really healthy, they can actually have a very a healthy nutrient profile. And potatoes are complex carbohydrates that are higher in fiber and starch, and they contain essential vitamins and antioxidants that can supplement your diet. I do have a nutrition label on the next slide, but there was a picture here that was just showing you the difference between monosaccharides and polysaccharides, or starch, and how it really boils down to how they are broken down, because monosaccharides are single sugar units, and polysaccharides are links or chains of single sugar, or chains of sugars. So when the body converts them into glucose, which is used for energy, if it's monosaccharides that are mostly found in refined foods like baked goods and cereals, they're devoid of nutrients. Compared to those complex carbs, they'll have those longer chains that are going to take a longer amount of time to break down and then promote that slower digestion and longer energy storage that we really want for those who might be trying to lose weight. So potatoes can actually be beneficial. And as you see over here, you can see that there are 110 calories. That's something to definitely watch out when you're trying to figure out how much of potatoes you want to add. And we're going to get to that when we look at the specific ingredients list for one serving. But there's a great amount of potassium here. There's about 620 milligrams. And if I believe in the book too, we do mention that if it's like a medium baked potato, it's almost 1,000 milligrams of potassium. And once again, it's just going to show how potatoes can really have that nutrient dense profile that they often get a bad, or isn't really something that a lot of people are aware of, especially since a lot of people today are consuming way too much sodium than potassium. In fact, most of our diets are low in potassium and high in sodium, which is the exact opposite. We should all know that excess sodium in the diet, or a high sodium diet, it can increase your blood pressure if your kidneys aren't able to process it. Sodium can be diluted into the bloodstream, increase your plasma volume expansion, and cause fluid retention and cause your heart to pump harder. So there's a lot of reasons why you should be consuming a lot of sodium. And our typical diets are very high in sodium, which is, an imbalance with the low potassium that we don't really want. So if you can find a lot of ways to incorporate potassium into your diet, it's amazing, because our dietary potassium recommended daily intake should be around 3,000 to 4,700 milligrams. And a lot of people might not be attaining that. Obviously, once again, know your health concerns, know whether you should be, if you do have health concerns that, you should be restricting potassium. That's obviously something you should consider with your physician. But for a lot of people, it is that matter of that imbalance between sodium and potassium. And potassium can help regulate that fluid balance in our cells, regulate blood pressure, help with muscle function. So your aim really for another goal for this video is to reduce, or for this meeting is to reduce your sodium in your diet and to increase your potassium. And also to keep the skins on your potassium. A lot of that nutrients and a lot of, especially the potassium, about like 330 milligrams is actually in the skin of the potato. So if you cook the potato healthily, so not frying it, if you're just boiling it with some water or baking it, perhaps you can leave out the salt, leave out the butter that you might normally put on a baked potato. It can actually be really healthy. And even if you don't have hypertension and you're not, too worried about the amount of sodium you're taking, I can assure you that you likely do want to be watching how much sodium you're taking and want to be fixing this imbalance that you might actually have in your diet to help reduce, your risk for developing any chronic diseases, or if you are experiencing any, to help combat those. So yeah, I did add a study over here. It touches on potatoes and beans. It's a randomized control trial where they took participants who were overweight or obese and supplemented them with a potato and bean diet. So meals that had around 2 ounces of sides of either potatoes or beans for about 8 weeks. And what they found was that in both the potato and bean diet, there was reductions in body weight in those who had insulin resistance. So here we see 5.6% reduction from their baseline weights over 8 weeks with potatoes and 4.1% reduction with beans. So there is potential for weight loss with, even though potatoes might be, lower energy dense foods, there is still, the relatively high fiber content and other aspects of the potato that can help in weight loss, especially, avoiding refined carbs and processed foods and, fries from McDonald's. That's not the potato that we want to be eating. If they're cooked healthily, I have a video later about how I cooked them, or really just boiling them. They can actually be healthy. Here I wanted to add that we know that potatoes are highly, they're highly starchy foods that can be accompanied by a higher glycemic index, which often is why those who are diabetic should avoid frequent consumption of potatoes, which might raise their blood glucose levels. However, potatoes contain a starch known as resistant starch, which are carbohydrates that are not broken down into glucose, that are not absorbed by your small intestine. So just like insoluble fibers, they pass through the digestive system, and they can ferment in the large intestine and act as a prebiotic to support your gut microbiota and gut health, just like fibers. And then in terms of weight loss, resistant starch can help you stay full or satiated longer, and thus can promote weight loss and fat burning. So when you're cooking potatoes, adding water and heat to starches induces gelatinization, which increases the digestibility of starches. However, if you cool the potatoes right after cooking them, it can promote retrograded starch, or an increase in that resistant starch. And this is because the amylose and amylopectin chains that are in the gelatinized starch begin to realign after the cooling process, or after they're cooled. So if you do choose to add potatoes to a salad, it's a really good idea to, if you're boiling them, cook them, and then let them cool before adding them to a salad. So the resistant starch is just going to act like a fiber. It's going to slow glucose absorption. And this is also found in other starchy foods. So same thing applies to if you're cooking your beans or cooking dried beans, oats, and lentils, among some other starchy foods. So I hope that provides enough rationale as to why we decided to include potatoes in this salad. And up next is the legumes. So legumes include beans, peas, lentils, and I've added kidney beans here but you can add, pinto beans, lima beans, garbanzo beans, or chickpeas, whatever beans really suit your taste profile. I also added green lentils here. So one thing about beans is that they're great sources of plant-based protein, fiber, and iron, as well as those antioxidants. So they once again have that really healthy nutrient profile that we saw before, and can have that potential for helping in weight loss by supplementing with healthier sources of protein. Also here, I just wanted to mention, I did add canned beans to my salad, but canned beans can contain a lot of sodium. You can purchase no salt added canned beans. However, if you don't have those, make sure that you rinse them and drain them really well, because that can remove about half the sodium content that is in the can of beans. So you can see here a normal can has about 420 milligrams of sodium, and that's a really unhealthy source of excess sodium that you want to avoid. But this no salt added one has about 3 milligrams. And if you cook your beans yourself, if you're cooking dried beans, soak those overnight. You can boil them, and you don't have to put salt in them. And I don't think, did anyone have a question or? Okay, no worries. But if you're cooking your own beans and they're dried beans, that's about 0 milligrams of salt if you're not adding any. And that's the beauty of cooking your own food, is that you can avoid adding added salt, because a lot of the salt is naturally in some of your foods. So you really want to cut down the salts that you're adding. And then also lentils are a great addition to salads as well, but are optional. I added cooked green lentils to the salad, which once again has those yields those nutritional benefits like fiber, protein, potassium, commonality that we're seeing here. But lentils are fairly simple to cook. If you're cooking beans, they're going to take longer to cook, whereas lentils can be cooked in around 20 minutes. They're a common addition in Eastern dishes. Coming from a South Asian background where a lot of people are vegetarian, a lot of my family members are vegetarian, lentil-based dishes and lentil-based gravies are really common and are a very important source of plant-based protein. But yeah, so that's definitely something you could consider adding. But once again, just to make sure that if you're using a canned green lentil, make sure you're aware of the sodium content that's going to be in it. It might be a better idea to just buy green lentils that are dried and cook those, and then add those to your salad. As well as this, you don't want to be adding all of these beans. Pick a few and make sure you're watching how many calories are in each. We'll look at this again when we look at the individual servings, but select the beans or lentils of your choice, and you could add whichever one you prefer. That's, once again, the best thing about salads is it's all up to you what you add. So here we just added another quick study. This is a 16-week randomized control trial that assessed the impact of a plant-based diet with an emphasis on plant-based proteins like legumes compared to a control diet with animal-based protein and the effect on body composition of overweight individuals. And what they found was that a decreased intake of animal protein was associated with the decrease in fat mass. So every 1 gram reduction in animal protein intake was associated with about a 0.05 kilogram reduction in fat mass. Likewise, they saw an increased intake of plant protein, they found a decrease in fat mass. So every 1 gram of increase of plant protein was associated with a reduction of 0.046 kilograms. So what we can see in this graph specifically is that compared to that control diet and the vegan diet or the plant-based diet, and then the stripe one is their baseline, the only significant reduction that was seen was in the plant-based protein diet. So this is another thing to just keep in mind, that there is evidence that replacing perhaps the animal protein that is in your diet right now with plant-based sources can help you in achieving some weight loss goals or goals of in promoting weight reduction. Okay, so we're getting a little bit closer to the video here, but for vegetables here, I just chose to add cucumbers, red onions, bell peppers, cherry tomatoes. I didn't add black olives, but that's typical in a Mediterranean salad. And these are just common ingredients that you'll find in a normal or a common Mediterranean salad. And this is, once again, we're trying to try to meet that Canadian food guide, that half a plate of vegetables. And things like cucumbers have barely any calories in them. They're practically water. So one thing about losing weight is that a lot of us tend to snack on foods. We're looking for really quick, easy snacks. And cucumbers can be a really great snack because despite not having maybe the best nutrient profile, they can be really easy to grab because they're, practically water. The greatest thing that they're providing to you is, hydration among some other vitamins like vitamin K and vitamin A, but they can be really easy to just snack on without having to worry about, calories. So, that's something that I would definitely add to a salad if I was looking for, a bit of a crunch to add some texture in there. But this is totally up to your preference on what you'd like to supplement here. The idea here is just finding vegetables, really look at what's on sale at the grocery store too, and plan meals on that if it, budget is a concern. Salads are the greatest thing because there's no set recipe. You can just, whatever you find most accessible, affordable is what you can add, and you can supplement things all the time. So yeah, really quickly, just, a common trend here is that what are antioxidants? We hear a lot about a lot of these components of the salad having antioxidants. So some of you might know, like oxidative stress is what occurs when there's an imbalance between reactive oxygen species and then our endogenous antioxidant capacity. And it can be promoted by obesity, smoking, diabetes, or unhealthy dietary choices, such as eating a lot of unhealthy carbs and fats that can promote the production of reactive oxygen species or free radicals, as you can see here, which are these unstable molecules that can cause DNA damage and increase lipid deposits, promote atherosclerosis, increase blood pressure, cause cardiac dysfunction. So the fact that a lot of these components of the salad do have antioxidant properties, which can help neutralize these free radicals by donating an electron and stabilize them, it just shows that a lot of components of the salad can help, reduce that LDL oxidation, and oxidative damage, inflammation, and provide antioxidant defense that you might be lacking in your diet right now if a lot of your food is processed and, is not including, vegetables and stuff like that. Okay, before we get to the ingredients list here, I just wanted to add here, a lot of people, when you think of Mediterranean salads, you're thinking of adding toppers to it, things that you can top it off with, such as cheese. A lot of the time it's feta. I used feta in one of the salads today, but also, cottage cheese, goat cheese, Asiago, Parmesan. People add a lot of sorts of things. What you want to be looking for here is low-fat cheese options if you're going to add cheese to your salad. Full fat is what you want to avoid. Things that have higher amounts of saturated fats. And can be additional sources of calories because, if you're consuming excess fats, that is going to be stored as fat. And it's going to lead to weight gain. Remember that all fats do contain 9 calories per gram. So cheese can be a source of unnecessary calories and saturated fats. So if you're really going to add cheese, really look out for those low fat options and use small amounts of them as well. The data is contradicting about the benefits of cheese, health benefits of cheese. So like anything, it's best to consume in moderation. And if consuming, look for the lower fat options. As well as this, I just wanted to highlight the nutrition label here for like a commercially available feta. There is a lot of sodium in it, and that's only per 2 tablespoons, which I feel you could easily fill a salad with. And that's quite a lot of sodium. So if you're going to consume cheese, just be aware that excess sodium, excess fats, and that, weigh the pros and cons of it. And if you are lactose intolerant, you could also add soy products like tofu. That can be a great way to substitute cheese. If you cook or, sear some tofu on a pan for a little bit, limiting amounts of oil, that can be a great thing to add to salads, can add, the element of cheese that, feta would provide or the other cheese options would provide. But yeah, over here, we just have a sample meal for one. This is what I hope you can probably use as the ingredients list compared to the one we shared before. So I made a nutrition facts label for this using a website. So this meal does have less than 500 calories in it. And we can see the calorie breakdown over here. We have 1 cup of kale, that's about 33 calories. a quarter cup of kidney beans. Here I only put one of the beans just to be, be mindful of the amount of calories I'm putting. With the same amount of, if you add, the garbanzo beans, or if you add another beans, it's going to be around the same amount of calories. So that's something you might want to watch out for. Just choose which bean you like best and add that one. The 100 grams of boiled potatoes with the skin, that's about 77 or 87 calories, give or take, depending on the size of your potatoes. We have a quarter of a medium cucumber, that's 11 calories, half a bell pepper, 19 calories, quarter of a red onion. I do like onion in my salads, so there's 11 calories. Cherry tomatoes, 16 calories. If you did add the black olives, about an 1/8 cup, 19 calories. Then we can see a tablespoon of the crumbled feta, that's 25 calories. And then a tablespoon of balsamic vinegar, which I used for a dressing in this one, is 14 calories. And then here, the teaspoon of Italian seasoning is substituting any salt that you're adding to this, which, Italian seasoning that could have, dried oregano, basil, thyme, really pepper, avoiding salt. And these are great seasonings that'll provide you with the flavor that, or the kick that you feel salt might provide. So yeah, I definitely encourage substituting salt for those herbs and spices. I even like to add, sometimes a little bit of paprika or cayenne pepper if you're looking for a little bit of more of a kick. Play around with spices. And yeah, so we can see here, there is still quite a bit of sodium here. So if I was adding added salt to this, I'm only adding to the amount that's already in here. So that's something you just want to watch out for. And then obviously you can see here the amount of potassium that's in this is almost 2,000 milligrams. So you're already reaching your dietary intake with just one salad because it's so rich in potassium sources. So yeah, definitely if you want to take a picture of this, if you want to reference this later, this is something to look out for, to apply to perhaps the goals we talked about earlier, a goal for this week or next week to make as one of your meals, and to set that as a SMART goal. On the next slide here, just because we're recording this and I want to be mindful of the privacy of everyone, we can come back to this at the end with our discussion. And I'll show the video that I have here first. Okay, so I believe it is playing. Anya, did you see the slide change over here?
I see a video right now.
Okay,
awesome. A little play button, yeah.
Okay, so the first step is to prepare. So you're gonna rinse and cut all your ingredients. So here I'm just washing some kale, some chickpeas. I'm gonna pause it there. Keep the skin on your chickpeas. A lot of the vitamins and nutrients are in the skins. So do keep them on, just like with the potatoes. Over here, I'm just straight up boiling some potatoes. I did use baby potatoes because I'm using what I have. But there are some sources that do say that mature potatoes would be more nutrient dense than baby or new potatoes. So this is always just, use what you have, but either way, you're just boiling a potato, or at this point you could bake a potato. And I just boiled this for about 20 minutes. But you just want to make sure that they're not, too mushy, that they're, quite firm. Or if you prefer your potatoes to be cooked a little further, you can, but I'd say about, 20 minutes on a medium heat should be fine for that.
Good.
So there we see that. So then I just cut all my vegetables. I've done 2 over there.
Divide ourselves up a little bit, or?
But you'll just cut as many of your vegetables however you wish. And then here I've just done an overview of all the things I ended up putting in. Now I made the salad quite big. So if you're gonna make it for one person, I would refer back to the sample ingredients list for one, because this makes a really big salad. But this can be great for meal portioning, because I don't know about you, it can be difficult to find the motivation to make food every day. So if you can, choose a day of the week, maybe that's Monday, maybe that's Sunday, to make, a large quantity of food, and then, meal plan for the rest of the week and portion it out. That can be a great thing to do to help you find that motivation that you might lose throughout the week. So yeah, this might be a little bit more than you would add. So this is not for one salad. This is for about 6 servings or more. But yeah, you see the green lentils there. Those are cooked. These are bell peppers. I've added cherry tomatoes, a lot of cucumbers, maybe too many, onions, and then the potatoes that I've kept with their skin and just cut them into little cubes, and then our kale, which I've washed. And then here I've just added Italian seasoning, and I also added some pumpkin seeds. So I love to add seeds to salads. Pumpkin seeds are definitely a preference, but in this category, you can add nuts, almonds, walnuts. With the nuts, I'd be careful, just mindful maybe to find, raw ones or no salt added. And also, if you do have other health concerns, nuts like almonds are oxalate rich, can lead to kidney stone formation. So that's something just once again to be on the lookout for. If you ever have any health concerns, just be aware of what you should be adding, whether you really need an ingredient, what you should cut out. You can also add chia seeds, sunflower seeds, and other whole grains. Just mix as many as you can. At the clinic, we made a bread, and we added just, Dr. Curnew gave us oats. We added oats to it. And he gave us chia seeds, and we added those to it. So feel free to play around with all sorts of, different seeds and nuts, excuse me. And these are going to just support, fiber and plant-based protein contents that can help reduce cholesterol, support your gut health, and help you feel full longer. Okay, moving on. So here's just an overview of everything I've added. So it's looking really healthy. The next thing is to mix and combine all your ingredients. So here you can see I've done two salads here. The first one I'm going to show is, I guess, a little bit of a cooking portion. You can put your pan on medium heat and add a really small amount of olive oil. I know we talked about this at the clinic a few times, some of our old videos, but if you can substitute olive oil and leave them out, leave as much unnecessary fats as you need out, that's it's great to do that. But if you do choose to do, because kale can have a bit of a bitter taste for some, it can also be difficult to chew for some. So sometimes cooking it for a little bit can help soften it, add a little bit of flavor if you're mixing it with some sauteed vegetables. What I didn't add here is salt and pepper. So I'm only using the Italian seasoning and then some pepper later on. So I'm only putting a very sparing amount of olive oil in here, and I'm just cooking it like that and waiting for the onions, whatever vegetables I wanted to saute, just soften. But yeah, there is also the concern here that sometimes people say that, or sometimes studies have found that cooking vegetables can, cause a loss or reduction of nutrients. And that really depends on the vegetables. And it depends, because there are studies that do say that there is a reduction of nutrients, and there's some for some vegetables that say that cooking vegetables can help break down their cell wall and release nutrients. So I would say, like anything, moderation. Try to consume, as many raw and as, a mix of both raw cooked vegetables, whichever one's accessible for you. But the goal that we're getting at here is that you're increasing the amount of vegetables in the first place, and that's a start. So ideally, I guess a raw salad would definitely be the more nutrient favorable one. That being said, a sauteed one is still a healthy choice. So yeah, here I think I've sped this up a little bit just so you're not watching me cook for too long, but there's no time limit here. I'm just cooking it however long as you wish for some people like their onions to be a little bit more crispy. So then you don't add the onions first, or you can just add them later on. So I don't like mushrooms, but this would be a good point if you like mushrooms, to saute some mushrooms as well. Here I'm adding some herbs, the Italian seasoning. So this is my seasoning over here. It's just a mild amount of olive oil, some Italian seasoning, and then I'm adding the kale into this. And just leave it on the pot on the pan for a little while, and it's gonna start to soften with the rest of the vegetables. Just kind of knead it a bit. It can get to this point after about like 5 minutes. At this point, I like to add the lentils here because if you have your pan on a higher heat, lentils can actually get roasted a little quickly if you put a lot more olive oil too. But But if you're on a moderate heat, they won't. But so you could add the lentils a little earlier, but my preference, I like to add the lentils last, just so they're a little softer. I will say though, if you want a crunch in your salad, cook the lentils first and let them kind of roast a little bit, and then they'll get a little bit crispy. So this is the next salad I'm mixing. In this one, I essentially took the remaining olive oil that was on that pan, although I will argue that a boiled potato is quite delicious by itself. But the remaining oil that was on that pan, I just took the potatoes, sauteed them really quickly with some Italian seasoning again, and then mixed a little bit of kale with that, which I added to the raw one. But you don't need to do this step. Personally, I just like it when the kale is like a little softer. So that's what you can see I'm doing over here. And then after that, I just mixed in the rest of the vegetables into there. And it made a really big salad. The last step is to add dressings. So as you can see on this one, I added just balsamic vinegar, and I added a little bit of feta cheese, although like we said before, you can leave that as well. So this is just weighing your dietary concerns, adding and omitting whatever fits those goals. And then this one is just a quick vinaigrette that I added lemon juice. Like I said, I'm using things that I have in my house too. So I didn't have enough lemon there. I would add a little bit more lemon. And then, this one does have olive oil in it. So you can kind of mix, pick which ones you prefer. I know on the recipe list, I did say to add, Dijon mustard. That's another thing you can add. I would be wary though, if you're buying a pack or a bottle of Dijon mustard that does have sodium, probably will have sodium in it as well. It can range 60 to 100 plus milligrams of sodium per tablespoon. Once again, can be that unnecessary source of salt. But yeah, this is just a little bit of olive oil and then some lemon juice. And this was really just to taste. I did add some instructions for if you really want to make, follow instructions and go based off of, a recipe. There is one on that recipe list. However, sometimes it's really just by taste, and then also whatever you have. I would have added a little bit more lemon juice if I had some. I didn't, so that's all I added there. And then no salt again. This is just the Italian seasoning. And then drizzling that over the salad. And yeah, very simple, very, I think if you're able to find some deals, go to the grocery store, pick a few vegetables, this is at the end of the day, if you're trying to lose weight, these are the best sources of food that you're going to find that are going to help supplement that journey. So really is, weighing those, weighing the options that you do have, and salad can help you do that, and just creating a meal that suits your needs and is colorful, and that's definitely going to fill half of your plate with veggies. And there's different options here. You can either do the raw salad or cook it or saute it, and yeah, just different ways you can play around with things.